experiencing it all over again for the first time, which is so rare.
Yeah, we talked about how we were going to be really good lovers together.
Right.
Yeah,
see, waiting is perfect.
What?
See how waiting is perfect?
Wait.
Oh, Jesus.
Waiting to have that moment.
So to go back to you and having listened to your former podcast, your previous podcast, I also subscribe 100% to you better take shit for a test drive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, granted, I understand. I come from a Catholic background. I come from a very conservative background. I know exactly everything that we're taught through catechism and everything else. So you're preaching to the choir, buddy. But I'm just saying, for me, conceptually, even if I were in a long-term relationship with a woman, I still would definitely have premarital sex because I want to make sure that we're compatible yet on a different level. We already connected mentally. We're connected emotionally. And let's see how the physical level works. Now, granted, that doesn't mean that cuts out that relationship, but it just lets us know where we are. And I think that's so challenging because I know so many people who get into a relationship without the physical element, and a lot of times that leads to the porn, that leads to the jealousy, that leads to the insecurities because they're not aware of their own bodies, let alone each other's bodies.
Then it leads to cheating as well.
Right. That can definitely...
because they're like, oh my God, what did I do?
Right.
So you talk real quick about insecurities. What is it like being, I don't even know if there's a such thing, like, is there insecurities? I'm sure there is. Mm-hmm. Is there any insecurities in a polygamous relationship or a polygamous kind of thing going on? Like, are you insecure of like your husband when you have like someone else that's there? Are you is he insecure? Like, how do you know what I'm getting at? Like, is there any insecurities surrounding your relationship with each other when it comes to having other people in a relationship?
Right.
It cannot be. It's not polygamous.
Thank you. I was going to say that's the one correction because it's a huge difference.
It's a very big difference.
Right.
Yeah. Polyamorous.
Remember,
okay. Amore.
Got it.
That's
Polyamorous.
amore.
Sorry, polyamorous.
Yeah,
so again, to clarify, polygamous.
Correction corner.
Yes, polygamous is an
having
activity.
multiple
spouses.
Perfect.
And it is something that is illegal in the United States.
Right.
Got it. So you are not
states.
polygamous.
No.
Polyamorous.
No.
Yes.
All right, folks. I'm getting this used to polyamorous. Say it with me. Polyamorous.
Correct.
Many loves.
Right.
So when it comes to your many loves,
yes,
are there any insecurities when it comes down to your husband having another person in this relationship? When you had your boyfriend for a year, was he like afraid, or was he like, oh, is he going to leave me for this guy? How does this look like? Was there a mutual agreement on what was going on with it? Again, I guess that's where I'm like, I don't know. I guess for me, my insecurities would come up. Like, for example, I don't know. Let's say Kari and I were in a polyamorous relationship.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Polyamorous relationship, and we brought this other girl or this other guy. I would feel so insecure. I'm going to be honest. I feel like, why is this other guy? I don't want this other guy or this other woman totally going
touching
ham,
my wife,
touching my wife,
right,
all this stuff. Or even I feel like she would feel the same way towards me. Like, oh, this other girl or this other guy is totally, not that I want that,
and it's also not for everybody.
Yeah,
right.
True.
So yeah, like I get it. You guys probably. I don't think Kari would be as big of an issue as more so you, just because of how you are, and it's not a negative. It's actually a positive for you. You're super just like, this is my chick. Like, this is all I want.
Right.
I'm actually very monogamous myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm open to, if we have a discussion and we want to consensually do something or whatever, then I'm down with it as long as we've talked about it and we're safe and we're doing that. But I was married for 8 years and I didn't cheat on him and we didn't have anybody in our bedroom, but that doesn't mean I haven't done it before.
Right. And I was going to say no, and I think specifically to your point, and then I'm going to take us back and reset back to me being younger. But specific to what you just shared, there is a concept called monogamish.
Ooh.
Which is something that is a little bit more closer to an open relationship concept. But that would be people that are into monogamy. But just like you said, you've had a discussion. It's not something that happens on a regular basis.
Right.
But it's something, and this happens many, many times. Everybody has that celebrity crush that like, hey, that's my one. And most couples have that. It's like, John, you have your
Scarlett
one.
Johansson.
And Kari has what?
Chris Hemsworth.
There you go. So
well, that was a quick answer.
Perfect. Yeah, because I hear it all the time.
But that's what I'm saying.
True.
Like,
he's very right.
So
we have that. It's true.
So
it's the past.
And so that would possibly fall under the monogamish idea if one of those two partners or both became available. And the question is, if Scarlett wants to have sex with both of you, or Chris Hemsworth wants to have sex with both of you, how does that work?
I'm pretty sure that both of you would say yeah.
Correct.
Because I've got 3 and I'm not naming either of them.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, all of that is very much...
I never saw it that way.
It's a one-off. It's a one-off situation that you both have good transparency and vulnerability. You've already shared about it. You probably shared too much about it, and now suddenly it's fallen in your lap, maybe face down if you're lucky.
Oh, baby.
But with that being said...
I'm going to share one. Aaron Rodgers. Ugh.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Fuck, I want to fuck him and Danica. Even though Danica's kind of a bitch.
But I think with that being said, it's very much... monogamish is kind of that concept of you have those situations where and there is room for it if you're in a genuine, honest, vulnerable, clearly transparent and communication is solid relationship. There's plenty of room for all of these things that the world tells you is wrong, or we've grown up being wrong. And that's why I want to bring it back to when I was younger, of growing up in the Catholic Church, kind of being able to reset that aspect of your questions about insecurity, because that's something I really feel that we had instilled upon us from a very early age, because sex is something that's for procreation. It's not something, yes, if it's between a monogamous, man and woman, you're able to, quote unquote, have, intercourse for pleasure. But realistically, in the Catholic faith, we're not really taught about anything pleasuring. It's all about procreating. Mm-hmm. So
that is what the church, like you just said, ultimately teaches, is pleasure is the second thing.
Correct. So now we have from birth, well, not from birth, but from a very young age, we have insecurities about sexuality.
Yes.
For ourselves. And I think that's a huge concept that we then ride into our 20s and 30s and 40s. And hopefully at some point in that 20s, 30s, and 40s, we'll be able to come into our own wherever we fall on the spectrum of being able to identify those insecurities, acknowledge them, and push through them, or don't push past them, but work through them. Because insecurities are there, period. Jealousy is something that is definitely attached, for me, in my thought process. Jealousy and insecurity they play into each other, because insecurity feeds jealousies.
Sure.
And with that being said, it's something that, yes, if you have multiple people and you're trying to find a way to communicate clearly and openly and honestly and transparently, it's hard as fuck. It is not something that's really easy. There is no easy answer for it. There are many, many books that have tried to explain it. I've read almost all of them, and none of them have been able to give me the exact recipe for what I need for myself and how I'm going to communicate with my partners. So with all that being said, yes, jealousy definitely, rears its ugly head, quote unquote. Absolutely. But I think that's even in everyday life, when we're sitting here and it's just who you are beyond the sexual component. How many times are you jealous of somebody from work, and it's very minor, maybe, and just like something in passing, super simple, super easy, but holy crap, it's attached to something from our past that has just kind of ridden in through the future, and we didn't even realize that it was there.
Right, like it is something that doesn't even have anything to do with that particular relationship. It's just shit that we've been through that eked its way in, and is like, this is gonna fuck up this part of my life.
And it's
God
exactly
damn it.
100%, and it's really, really strange how they kind of show up that way.
I'm sorry. So within, so you guys are not in a relationship with somebody else right now.
Correct.
You guys are like on a break.
Kind of. I mean, my husband Brian is seeing somebody, but casually.
Okay. So what does that look like? So that's my next question. So, do you guys do things separately with these people? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Like what?
So it could be so we have, long before this even came into being, because we're both really busy.
Yeah.
I'm in broadcasting. Brian's a software engineer. We have very different schedules.
Sure.
With all that being said, we establish 2 date nights a week, Tuesdays and Fridays.
Okay.
That are just for us.
Okay.
And so those are the 2 nights that we are dedicated to spending with each other, making plans. It could be, and it has been because we moved recently, so it's literally unpacking boxes.
Right.
It has also been...
It's super intimate.
It is. And it's funny because... what's today? Today is Wednesday. So yeah, last night.
Hump day.
Yeah. But we were both running around naked unpacking stuff.
Oh my God!
Which is very connected, just kind of like you said. It's a vulnerable, connected thing.
Full on naked or like underwear naked?
No.
Oh my God!
There's no such thing as underwear naked.
Okay, I'm just asking. I thought that was...
No, I get it.
I love Nick.com.
Yeah, there's nothing. Naked is naked.
Okay, I'll tell you this. Date number 2 with karaoke guy, we were naked singing in my living room.
See, but I think that's
and we
great.
forgot to close the curtains. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And the 2 of us, just like, we're just doing our thing. And nothing happened, but we just sat and sang together in my living room. Yeah. And it was fucking epic.
And if you had a Ring doorbell, I wish you were recording. Because I really would love to see that. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think, to me...
that's an intimate thing.
It's a very intimate thing.
Without even touching each other.
Correct. And I think that's something that it should be celebrated instead of looked down upon. Because I think a lot of people...
agree.
Because I guarantee, and it's likely that someone's even listening right now going, this sounds really...
I'm uncomfortable.
Right.
Ew.
And it's like, well... Why are you uncomfortable?
Right.
I can
take a moment. But that's what I'm saying.
I can relate to that.
Take a moment
I'll be honest.
and take a break and take a beat and think about it. Why is this making me so uncomfortable? What from my past or even present? Like, why is this something that I'm not connecting with? Why am I not, we appreciate you continuing to listen, but why am I wanting to stop the podcast right now?
Right.
Why am I so uncomfortable with it?
Judgmental, or why am I being intolerant?
I guess like from like you talk about growing up, and for me as well, from Catholic to Catholic here, I've always felt, and I really mean this, and I don't mean this obviously like I'm gonna obviously pack up my stuff and leave the church. You already know where I'm at with all the people.
Yeah.
But it's more of like I've always felt limited.
Yeah,
I've always felt limited. I've always felt to where it's not been personal at times, where it's like, it's something that I'm just following, but I have these feelings, these inclinations, these drives, and it's like, but that's immoral. That's an immoral, John. You can't have that. And again, you feel small. I felt limited. I felt like I don't want to live by these rules that society, even though it's the church,
right?
But that society now, I know obviously we're in 2019, different world, but I'm sure, obviously you have like 5 years on me, or I don't know, I'm obviously the youngest one here, but realizing that society has set these rules, especially in the 70s,
right?
When it's come to gay men, when it's come to just lesbians, and it's not a good time for any of that. It wasn't a great time.
Right. No, it was very much so. And I think to go back to the Catholic thing specifically, we're taught from a very early age, again, touching on the procreation concept.
That is just for that.
That is just for that. And affection is something that you don't share. Even though, as silly as it sounds, you have the kiss of peace in the middle of services, which half the time you'll have men hugging and kissing during that period, but damned, you barely can shake hands the second you walk out of the church.
What's funny is I barely started kissing Kari on the mouth during that.
See, but that's what I'm saying.
I'm going to barf.
No, but it's adding to this point of like, he's right.
I just blacked out for a second.
He's absolutely right to where it's like we don't share those intimate moments, even with our spouse. Like I'm more of like, PDA card, be careful, we only can kiss each other.
Oh my god!
But but I'm telling you, being real with you on the limitations that I have felt, even that she's my freaking wife.
Yeah, that's nuts.
In service, and yet I still feel limited. And she called me out, and she's like, "When are you going to kiss me on the mouth? What's going on?"
Dude, as far as I'm concerned, you should be finger banging her in a pew.
She's not wrong.
Oh gosh, both of you.
I mean,
I was looking at you for like, hey, that's sacrilegious. How about here?
The worst part is as long as you put a napkin on the ground in case Kata gets wet.
I mean, what you gonna do?
And I only say this because I know her, and so
I know her too.
Yeah, I was like, no, and I mean nothing but love and respect.
She's fucking awesome.
So real quick, one question, one last, then I'll obviously toss it to Lyndsay because I know we're going back and forth here.
No, that's fine.
Just real quick, when it comes,
that's what conversation is.
Yeah.
When you guys, how did you always know that you and Brian, right, your husband Brian?
Yes.
How did you always know that you always were going to be in a polyamorous relationship with each other? Like,
no.
Okay, so it started off very monogamous.
So in the beginning of our relationship, monogamy was the first 3 years, about 2.5, 3 years of the relationship, and followed a very traditional relationship that way. We met originally on a hookup app called Adam for Adam. And it was specifically intended, in fact, in our wedding services, the priest specifically said that Brian was a booty call that didn't go away. And that's 100%. We were married. We had an Anglican priest with the Episcopal Church, and that's literally when he was giving his sermon. That was one of the things.
Your wedding rings?
Wow! So
might as well be.
So it was actually a church service.
We weren't in a church. We got married at the Port of Los Angeles. We got married on the 4th of July. But we went through, just like, and I hate to keep talking on Catholicism because it is my knowledge and it's John's, but
it's really good for our show.
But I think it's important. I went to Marriage Encounter. Like, Brian and I went to Marriage Encounter.
Really?
What the fuck is Marriage Encounter?
Marriage Encounter is a very
sounds
specific...
like I'm losing my fucking mind just within 2 words.
Right, and I think it's funny because it's a very specific program that's within the Catholic faith, and you have to think that Episcopal or Anglican is just a step away from Catholicism. It's Catholic light, and so they follow a lot of the same practices because both Catholic and Episcopal or Anglican are considered high masses. So they're the ones that have the pomp and the circumstance and the stand up and the sit down and the prayers and the incantations and everything like people talk about. With all that being said, though, Marriage Encounter, I think, is a hugely important thing that everyone should go through. And it's, relatively speaking, a program where you're learning about relationships. You're learning about those vulnerabilities. And if you're in a really good program, it will do so